some bad news. The good news is there's this national tournament. It's in Colorado. The bad news is we don't have any money to get out there, or we can't get out there. We can't fly,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden that's where the whole thing
Yeah.
started. Like we'll get there, but we didn't even know. We didn't
Wow.
even. I did ask a coach from the University of Rochester, Terry Gurnett. He's actually a Spenceport guy too, and I remember asking him because he was coaching U of R. He was the longtime coach of U of R, very successful. I remember asking him because I was part of his interview for the documentary. I said, "Did you hear about it? Did you know there was a national tournament?" He goes, "There was some talk
Okay.
during that 1980 season that Stephen Paul from Colorado wanted to have this national tournament. We knew nothing, absolutely nothing as athletes.
Damn.
All of a sudden we're going. All of a sudden we're still playing. We keep going, and I was a freshman going, cool, all right."
Yeah. When I can imagine it at this point, the idea of pioneering. I mean, I think a lot of people just kind of boil that down at, well, you're first. And it's like, well, yes, I mean, that's part of it. But things are developing, they're unraveling, they're building. Some things are, I mean, the AEW that only existed for a couple of years before the NCAA took over. Like things are coming and going very, very quickly. I'm sure at this point you've also talked to your teammates or classmates and realized, oh, hey, like, the athletics that I had or the support I had in high school maybe wasn't quite as common everywhere else. Like you're kind of seeing all this like ebbing and flowing. I can only imagine the excitement of, you go through that regional tournament and you're kind of like, okay, we did well. Oh, wait, there's this next thing. That must have been exhilarating. I am looking at, and whoever has made the website that has a documentary, it's called Two Red Cortland State. Wait, my dyslexia is kicking in. Oh wait, Two Red Cortland State Vans. That's what it is. .com, which has all the schedules, pictures, wonderful. But I'm noticing the schedule. The regional tournament, you played 3 games in 5 days, but then the final tournament, you played all those 3 games in 3 days. Was there any sense of like tiredness, or like, or was it just like, hey, this is what we do? You play games back to back to back, no big deal. Like how did the driving on top of that was? That just seems kind of crazy to.
I think I don't remember anyone saying they were tired. I don't remember everyone saying, "Oh God, we got to play again." I think we were just, "Let's go." We're resilient, right? And it was some snow on the ground. It was cold a little bit. It was definitely cold, but a little bit of snow on the ground. And we're like, "Hey, we're from New York State. Let's go, Central New York State at that point. Cortland, let's go play. We played in the snow before, And I think like I said, just this group of resilient, anything we can do to win a game type of women that I was just so lucky.
Yeah.
My freshman year, not saying I didn't have it the rest of my time, but my freshman year class was, pretty special.
Yeah, I can see that.
Freshman season, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. How did so y'all win the national championship that year? I'm curious, those next 3 years, they're changed. So like you obviously y'all don't repeat, but also you have coaching changes as well. I mean, yeah, and you finished those 4 years with 3 different coaches.
3 different coaches, yeah.
How did those next 3 years? I mean, was it disappointment, or I mean, again, the pioneering aspect? Like, there's no promise of tomorrow. You're just kind of like moving through. How did those last 3 years?
So the win of our freshman year was awesome, and Cortland was very very gracious at honoring us and banquets and this and that, even into the spring semester and that. And then Coach Rush says she's going to step down, because she kind of just did it to be a good person. So there was a program and stuff like that. So at that point, the logical thing that Cortland did was take our assistant coach and bump him up to head coach. And I'm really not going to go into a big detail about it, but that turned out not to be a very good thing. So my sophomore year, from mistakes that he made paperwork wise and other things, we still had a good season. But I think if you talk to anyone who played during that time, we kind of ignored 1981. Yeah, I mean, I honestly can't tell you even like a good memory from that year. It was, and I, again, I'm not going to go into it, but let's just say
Yeah.
it was not a good thing.
Yeah.
But then in 82 and 83, we had Chris Malone come in, who was from the University of Virginia, and he brought in a tremendous, tremendous amount of soccer knowledge. It was the first time all of us, because we, even though we came from different high schools and had different coaches, some of them, played some good summer programs in a sense. And this was Empire State Games too, but again, that was only a short period. But here we are now finally having someone who knows soccer.
Yeah.
And he really did. I mean, I believe he brought knowledgeable soccer to all of the Northeast and in New York and everything, We used to travel around as groups with him to give coaching demonstrations and stuff like that when he was that. So he brought a tremendous amount of knowledge. And so that's when, like, my junior year was the first time we had preseason. Okay. Never heard of that before. He didn't know a lot about goalkeeping per se, but he knew enough as being an intelligent man. He gave us like some stuff from Joe Matchnick. That was my first time ever hearing about Joe Matchnick and that kind of thing. But all of a sudden, my junior and senior year, we started to come about, because you got to realize when he came in as my junior year, there was no recruiting from my sophomore year. Yeah. Right, because that coach had to step down.
Yeah.
So he just was with the people that we had. So we had some of our good freshman class and carrying on to now juniors and things, and some good people. Yeah. So that's why the UConn game was like kind of a big thing.
Okay.
So we made it to the quarterfinals, and I do have another quick story about
you go.
But then my senior year, he was traveling the country recruiting. He brought in people from Colorado, from Canada, Washington, D.C., people from the WAGs area. And now we got like a team. And we were ranked 4th in Division I the whole season, but unfortunately lost in the quarterfinals again, right before the Final Four down in Florida, to George Mason 2-1. We hosted in the snow and lost 2-1. So it's kind of, with that thought process, I've always been a little jealous of the seniors from my freshman year that they got to that national championship, because, man, after winning it your freshman year, you just want it bad the whole rest of the time. But we had a tremendous program. But but what I was going to say about my junior year is our coach, Chris Malone, had ties with Virginia and with UNC and with different people down south, and we went down and played in a tournament in Florida during the season for the University of Central Florida. And the second game of this tournament, or some point of the tournament, we had to play UNC, and we ended up winning 2-1. Unbelievable. It was like, so like from years on, every time they would show the UNC record and they have a loss, we always point, that's us. We're one of those losses. We might only have a few, but we're one of them.
Yeah, that's awesome. In the documentary, I love that y'all got a number of kind of more modern, popular people, but Anson's in it, and he kind of talks about going to the national championship, or that first year where y'all won the national championship, and UNC got there, did okay, but didn't really progress. And then he gets back, and then he kind of gets asked a question like, "What does it take to succeed?" And he's, I forget his answer, but something about money. And they're like, "All right, you got it." And so, kind of overnight, UNC is transformed into having a ton of money. And I think it kind of becomes one of those haves, have-nots sort of thing, where UNC just gets this massive target where they kind of become a rival for everyone in this area, where everyone really wants to beat them, and those losses become really important. Because not only are they good, but they're getting a lot of funding that no one else is getting, and most places aren't even close to getting. And so that's funny to hear. I'm going to talk to Jen Renola, who played at Notre Dame on Friday, and spoiler, but I think 20% of the goals she ever gave up in her 4 years. She started every game, but 20% were from UNC. You know, it was kind of like you know, just cool. So yeah, I how did the I don't want to jump ahead too much, but y'all end up moving to Division III, but also as you know started. I'm guessing athletic scholarship didn't really exist at this time.
So
yeah.
So we were, my entire time, we were considered Division, I guess you would call it, we would have a mixture of Division I/Division III by today's standards, but we were just playing soccer teams, right? So we could be playing UConn one day, and then the University of Rochester the next day, and then Hartwick another day, and then Harvard another day, or UCLA or whoever. So we just had this, you know, you just played them.
Yeah.
And then my junior and senior year, we still had a Division I, primarily Division I, but again, we didn't have a lot of money. So sure, we had to play schools that were closer, you know, like I said, programs that were established like University of Rochester, Hartwick, a little bit of St. John Fisher. William Smith was just at the beginning, but they weren't established yet.
Yeah.
And then my last season was 83, and then I believe 84 and 85 still went on to be that same kind of idea as Division I. But during that time, our head coach, Chris Malone, had the forethought that there's no way Cortland's going to be able to keep up because we're not going to be able to get money, right? So he started the whole ball rolling of introducing the Division III National Championship, which started, I believe, in 86.
That sounds
so, and Cortland was always ranked number one the whole season. Cortland hosted, but they ended up losing U of R one. But that's how they went on then, how it went from Division I and then Division III, and then later in the years, Division II started having one. But he was the impetus behind saying, we're not going to be able to keep up. You just not. You know, sure.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, sure, it's a good program. It's not a very expensive school, but still, you know, it's hard to recruit when other people are getting money.
Well, I can see that. How do you? All right, welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Bill Reno, and today we're continuing our series of talking to the legends in the game. And today we have Jen Grissinger, formerly Jen Renola, excuse me. And sorry, I just totally butchered that intro. Let me do that. Sorry.
It's okay. I feel the same way. Actually, you're starting over, right?
Yeah. We'll cut this.
I'm going to lock my office door. I have 5-year-old triplets. I just want to make sure no one barges in here. Hang on. Okay. Renola, it's all the same. Okay, here we go.
Let's say it wrong and
No, Renola, but yeah. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah. All right. Welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Bill Reno, and today we're continuing our series of talking to the legends in the game. Today, I'm very honored to have Jen Grissinger, formerly Jen Renola, and there are a lot of accolades that I could tie to your name that you rightfully won. But I think the number one that I'll start with is that Jen was named to the 25th anniversary team, which may or may not sound like a lot, but when you consider the names that you won the award over, I think the most obvious one is you won the award over Bryce Curry, which is kind of crazy. So Jen is a very accomplished goalkeeper, played for Notre Dame, won the national championship. I had to pull my notes up in 95, excuse me. Sorry, I was like, I know it was the wrong number. 95, a fantastic goalkeeper. No, I don't know, right? Lots of accolades. So, Jen, thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited to kind of go into the cobwebs of your mind and go through all these details of goalkeeping. So, thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So good. Well, how about you wind the clock back a little bit here and tell me that first moment where you're playing goalkeeper and you kind of realize, hey, I've got something that other people don't. And it can be a very small thing, it can be kind of a generic thing, or maybe it's a moment. But when you thought of yourself younger, that kind of separated yourself of, hey, like I'm not too bad at this goalkeeping thing. And this isn't really for everyone. What was that thing that kind of separated you a little bit from everyone else that made you more successful at an otherwise kind of terrifying position for young kids?
Mhm. Yeah, I think it goes back. I think I was in 7th grade or 8th grade, and I was on a club team, and I was a forward. I wasn't a very good one, but and we had a goalkeeper, and she got injured, and our coach was sort of just like looking for someone to fill in, and so I ended up like volunteering basically, and I played in goal for a while, and I think I was good, or I was better than I think I thought I was. And so it really just became, it was kind of through that. And they just asked me like, do you want to like continue playing? And that club team, actually, I had played on a local club team before, and then that team recruited me over. And then that happened, and I sort of subbed in goal, and then they asked me to just like stay. And so I think that was the first time that I really realized like I could be good at that. And then that club team and that coach specifically got me involved in the ODP program, which is like where it completely took off. But it was really like our goalkeeper getting injured.
Yeah. Okay. Was there any sort of thought going into that moment where you like, hey, this is something I might be good at, or you had no idea? I mean, what was your mentality like kind of stepping into a very different position?
I think it was just like I had like played volleyball, and I loved volleyball, and I was like good in the back row. I wasn't very good in the front row. I wasn't really a great hitter, but it's like a lot of the same things. And I think I was just quick. Like that was my thing. Like I wasn't very athletic. I wasn't very big, but I was quick and like had good positioning. And so I think that's sort of what like clicked for me where, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like that's been a very common thread of talking with not I would say just players, but specifically goalkeepers from this era where they played a lot of sports, a lot of positions, and there was kind of a similar, almost Swiss Army knife kind of aspect of like, hey, I can kind of do this, in a lot of different sports. When I talked to Joan Shako, she mentioned like playing shortstop in softball, and how that had a very similar kind of mindset of like, hey, you got to move your body. So that lines up. What was it? What was like the moment where you got some very helpful instruction? Because I'm assuming as you kind of get thrown into this, you have some crossover with volleyball, but for the most part, you're kind of just figuring it out. Do you remember an early coach, or whether it was ODP or club, or maybe it didn't happen until college, where you got some actual goalkeeper training where you had a bit of a light bulb moment of like, oh, I can do it this way? Or
Yeah, no, that was like my whole, like, I think that was like my whole key to success. So I grew up in Northern California, and like I said, this club coach got me involved in the state team. Janine Sparra was my coach for ODP, and like Janine, she was a little bit ahead of me. She probably to this day like still has like the best footwork of like any goalkeeper that ever played the game. She was just so big on like footwork, and it was like I like literally can hear her still saying like it's your feet that get the hands to the ball. So she was like my state coach. And then I got involved in the ODP program, and my coaches for the Western regional team, it's all changed since then, but Amy Allman was one of my goalkeeper coaches, Amy Griffin now. Also like one of the best goalkeeper coaches out there and players, and Mary Harvey actually coached me as well. And so I was just like super lucky to have those people. And basically what happened is I would go to like state team practice. I would go to the regional team camps, because at the time they were like camps in the summer for many weeks, and I would get everything that I needed, like all the drills and everything I needed, and I would come back to my club team. And I had a specific goalkeeper coach named Darren. He wasn't a goalkeeper, but he spent the entire practice with me, so I would come back and like tell him what I needed to do, and like he would just run all the drills. So like I would not have gotten where I was without those coaches, and I think those coaches really like lent themselves to like my style. Like I was never gonna be the most athletic, the tallest, could jump the highest. I was never going to be that. And I had all these coaches that were similar to me, I think, in some sense, and helped coach me to like maximize what I could do, which was like, positioning, technique, being in the right spot, like being set when someone shoots the ball, like all the little things that are like really big things in goalkeeping.
Yeah. When I remember I talked to Janine a few years ago, and I kind of stumbled a little bit on her story. I remember she had mentioned that when she went to, I think it was like the Olympic Festival and she was working, I forget who it was, but she was working with some coach, and they like harped on her footwork. It's like, hey, like, and she just didn't even know what that meant. She was like, what do you like? What is footwork? I don't know. So that must have been a light bulb moment for her that kind of like carried on to not only you, but everyone she worked with. So I didn't know that you had so many connections to really other former greats. Did you have a sense at the time of like, hey, I'm very lucky to work with, or that's awesome, I'm working with this person? Or were you just kind of a kid kind of going from practice to practice?
I like legitimately had no idea. And like I said, I played on a local club team and I was recruited to another team. And then that coach got me started in ODP. It was Mika Hansen's dad, and she ended up having a really good career at Santa Clara. She was a forward. And then they were like, oh, you should do state team too. And I did. And then I made it to the regional camp where I got exposed to all these people. And like my head coaches at the regional camp were like Leslie Gallimore, Clive Charles, and all those people were very instrumental in my career. I had no idea. It's so different now. You know, like I just kind of went along with it, and people like guided me, and I just went along with it and just wanted to get better and learn. But I mean, just those three people, like Amy, Mary, and Janine, were like the best of the best. And I really didn't have any idea. It wasn't like I sought those people out. It was kind of amazing, actually.
That is kind of crazy. Between the three of them, I mean, was that 30, 40 caps? I mean, they have, that's kind of crazy that you got that. That's wild. Did you have, I mean, obviously you're getting a lot of success at this time, or you're getting a lot of, I guess success, right? Where you're getting recognition of state and ODP. Was there kind of a moment of like, hey, I think I can not only go to college, but like I think I can play at a high level? How did you understand your own ability at the time, or were you just kind of lost in the shuffle of like, well, I think I'm okay, like, but I don't really know? I mean, did you have any sort of distinction of kind of where your level was at the time?
I think it's just so different now too. Like I think that was never a goal. Like I was never like, that's what I want to do. And like I said, I played volleyball. I played softball too. I quit that a little bit earlier, but volleyball was, I kept playing club volleyball and club soccer through sophomore year in high school. I think it was at a regional camp, probably. I think it would have either been between my freshman and sophomore year in high school or sophomore and junior year in high school, where I went to this camp. And at the time, they had like, I don't know what they called it, but it was like a week before the actual regional camp of like people that were on the bubble that they invited in. And so I somehow got an invite there, and then I made it through that week, and then I made it through like the camp week, and then they picked the team, and I think Clive was coaching at the time, and I made it like onto the team. And throughout all of that, and there were some other goalkeepers that had been in the program for like many, many years, and I sort of got chosen ahead of them. And I think that was the time that I really was like, okay, I think I can play in college, and I think I'm good enough. And so it was probably, but I think it was between my freshman and sophomore year. It might have even been sophomore, junior, I'm not sure. But that was, I think, probably the time that I realized that I could most likely play in college.
Interesting. And so you get to Notre Dame. Well, actually, I assume the connection to Notre Dame was kind of fulfilled through you rubbing shoulders with a lot of really important people. Is that
the Notre Dame story is actually kind of interesting because it was so different then, right? Like coaches wrote you a letter like July 1st before your junior year, I think, and they could start talking to you your junior year, and then you took visits your senior year. It was just like so different. Yeah. And Leslie Gallimore was my regional team coach. She was coaching at San Diego State at the time. She wasn't at Washington yet. And she had recruited me, but that wasn't where I was going to end up going. And I was looking locally, like Stanford, Santa Clara, Cal Berkeley. Those were all very local to where I grew up. And Notre Dame, actually, they saw me, my club team. It was the summer before my senior year. We played we played at nationals. Like we were the regional champion, went to nationals. Yeah. And Chris Petrosley was the coach at Notre Dame. He was there recruiting Debbie Keller. We played Debbie Keller's team. She ended up going on and playing at Carolina, and he was there recruiting her, and he saw me, but I was never on his radar before. And he ended up calling Leslie Gallimore, and she's the one that really like advocated for me because she knew I wasn't going to end up going to San Diego State. So she's the one that really like advocated for me. So he had like literally never seen me play until the summer before my senior year. And then he saw me and I think he called Leslie and he was like, was this a fluke or is she good? Like, what's the deal. And Leslie had seen me, over the past few
Yeah.
years and like vouched for me. And that's kind of how I ended up there.
Okay. Were you talking or were you even looking at any other schools at the time, or was not? I mean, were you dead set on playing at this point, or were you kind of like, well, if it happens, it happens. If not, no worries.
No, I think I was dead set at that time. But junior year is sort of when I figured that out. And like I said, my 5 recruiting trips were Stanford, Santa Clara, Harvard, Berkeley, and Notre Dame. And I just, in the end, wanted to. Well, it was interesting. I had my visit to Notre Dame scheduled, and then I just had a lot going on my senior year. I had a lot of homework, and I'm like, I'm not going to go on this visit. I'm not going to go to school there. And my parents were just like, they bought you a plane ticket, you're going, you've committed, and you're going. And then I ended up going on my recruiting trip, and then I ended up going there. So it's a good thing they forced me to go there. But that was kind of the process. So I was committed, and those were the other schools I was looking at. I think I thought I would end up more locally. And then as I went through it, the opportunity to get away from where I had grown up and try something new was really the differentiator. And honestly, just the whole recruiting process, the way that Chris at the time, Petroselli, recruited me, he just he came to my house twice. He flew halfway across the country twice, where the local coaches didn't do that. They came over for dinner once, and he just really kind of doubled down. And that's what convinced me, I think.
Okay. So I'm guessing when you do arrive on campus, there was, with so much commitment from the program on the front end, that you starting, or I guess walk me through a little bit of starting the very first game. You started every game at Notre Dame, which is kind of crazy to think about. But I imagine as a freshman, you probably have maybe a thought of, well, maybe, we'll see in what time I'm going to get, but you played the first game from then on. How did that happen as far as starting so strong?
Yeah, how did that all unfold? It was interesting too, because Notre Dame was at a different point than Stanford and Santa Clara. When I was a senior in high school, Santa Clara had Brandy Chastain, Stanford had Julie Foudy. They were already very established, and Notre Dame was not. It was Notre Dame and soccer that wasn't a thing. But I think I was sold on the vision and the dream. And I got there, and it was very interesting. They actually had a goalkeeper a couple years older than me, who was a junior, who had played, I think it kind of split time the first 2 years with someone who ended up graduating before I got there. And it was very clear in preseason. It's there's 2 of you, and one of you is going to win the job. And that was it. And that ended up happening. And I remember I sat down in preseason with Chris, and he's just like, you're our goalkeeper. And I think I was legitimately still 17 at the time. I turned 18 the end of August. And he was just like, you're going to make mistakes. Things are going to happen. But you're our goalkeeper. And then the other person ended up leaving the team. It wasn't we have a good relationship. It was a fine relationship, but I think just the confidence of just we've chosen you, the decision's made, you're going to make mistakes, things are going to be up and down, but we believe in you and we'll keep going, worked for me. I think at the time, the Carolina mentality was sort of they always had 2 really good goalkeepers, and they just duked it out every game, every practice, they split time. I don't know that I would have done quite as well in an environment like that as I did in an environment where it's you're the one, and we'll stick with you through the good and the ups and the downs. That worked well for me personally.
How did you handle yourself from the social side of being in a team where you're still 17, you've been given a lot of confidence, both from your coach one-on-one, but also very publicly as well? Hey, this is our goalkeeper here. How did you handle kind of stepping into an environment and oh, okay, now I'm taking on a lot of responsibility very, very early?
What I think was the key to the whole thing was we had a really good group of seniors on the team. It was a very interesting time because we had, seniors on the team that had kind of started the program effectively and were good. But then, as recruiting happened, it's all Americans started to get recruited, and the level just shot up pretty quickly. And I think the class above me had, Reagan Coyne, Michelle McCarthy, Ashley Sharver, had some really good players. And then my class had some really good players. And Cindy Dawes, who was arguably the best player in the country in my class, ended up coming in. And so there was an infusion of a lot of young talent, and then seniors and even juniors that had kind of started the program and had been there from the beginning. They were like super supportive. And I had a couple people who were seniors. I think it helped that I wasn't in direct competition with any of them because I was the goalkeeper and they were not. But I just had a couple, there were a few seniors that just really like helped, you know, and there was never any like, you guys are freshmen and hazing and this and that. Like it was always like, you're part of the team and you guys have to like lead the team. And I think they knew that for the whole team to do well, like some of the young players on the team had to really perform, and they knew that like just helping us was going to get everybody into a better place. And so that I give a lot of credit to that group, and we still keep in touch, you know, like Stephanie Porter, Jill Matesic, like we still all keep in touch. They were just really good at bringing us along and helping us.
Yeah. When I was younger, I would hear all the time coaches preach about, you know, team unity and, you know, buy-in and all this stuff. And in my head, I was like, well, I don't know. Like, I guess that's kind of important, but really it seems like the tactics are really more important. But as I've gotten older, I've just seen how many times where there's a fracture in the team or someone's not bought in, but they're pretty important, or, you know, there's this, that, and you're kind of pulling yourself apart. You know, how many teams get kind of already defeated before they step on the field. Like when you have that collective whole, whether, you know, who, doesn't matter what year someone is, like everyone's bought in, that goes that goes a long ways.
That was like a very big part of our team at Notre Dame. Like, it's like I played there and then I coached at Texas, and so like I've been around several teams, and that was very much the team at Notre Dame. It was just a bunch of really good players. We probably didn't have like, I don't know that we were always the best team, even like if you just looked at the individual players, even the year we won, but we definitely were a team where like the sum of the output was way greater than like the individual parts, you know, or the output was way greater than the sum of the individual parts. Because it was just a bunch of people that worked hard and were good and really wanted to win and like help each other. So
yeah. Well, in your freshman year, I mean, it'd be hard to have a lower it'd be hard to have a higher standard set for you. You'll end up in the final, and I can only imagine just kind of like the transition, or maybe the momentum that y'all had of being bought in at the start of the season, but then as you're doing well, and the program has never really gotten to these heights anywhere close prior to, how that just kind of snowballed a bit. How did the expectations of the team grow from your time being there, where, you know, they were okay before, but then now they're making Final Fours pretty regularly? That must have been a very quick transition.
Yeah, no, I think we had it like we had a good situation since that there were no expectations. And then my freshman year, we actually lost in the first round of the tournament, but I think at the time there were 16 teams in the tournament. There might have even been 12 teams. We lost to, I'm pretty sure, I'm trying to remember. I think we lost to George Mason in the first round. It was in Wisconsin. And I think we realized, I think Jen Mead was there, was the goalkeeper at George Mason, who was really good. And I think we realized like we had fallen short. And then the next year we made it to the final, but we got killed in the final by Carolina 5-0. And then we won the next year, and then we made it to the final the next year. But so I think it was like fairly easy. Like there were very few expectations. And then given our early exit my freshman year, I think we realized, okay, we're way better than this and we can go further. And we knew we could do it, but like the rest of the country didn't really think we could. So that actually, I think, just helped us. It helped relieve the pressure. Like Keisha Bean coming in, when I was a senior, she was a freshman. She had a lot more pressure like on her than I ever did, you know, and I was a senior, she was a freshman. I still was the starter, but then after I graduated and she was the starter her sophomore year, she had like way more pressure on her than I did coming in as a freshman.
Gotcha. That's right. Sorry, 93 freshman year. I'm trying to get all my dates lined up.
I know, I can barely remember it too. So
actually, so 93, George Mason, that's Sky Eddy. Before,
Sky Eddy. Okay, yeah. Oh my gosh,
yeah. She has.
Wow. It's been a while.
A lot of names and dates. But no, a very exciting time because I think for people to hear Notre Dame now, oh my goodness, Notre Dame, and the rollover of just the prestige of the school and in other sports kind of has carried through a bit. At the time, I can see that being like you're literally in the pioneering stage of kind of growing that, which is very cool. I did have a fun stat for you. So I was going back through, and I noticed, you know, obviously the team did not, in your 4 years, did not get scored on a whole lot. 20% of the goals you gave up at all were to UNC through your 4 years. To the one team, a fifth of your goals were all to one school. And so I imagine the rivalry
Interesting.
is that, yeah. I mean, y'all didn't give up that many, but if there was one team to score,
Yeah.
but I assume a lot of schools, I know a lot of schools really wanted to beat UNC, and that was a real challenge. But for y'all, I mean, y'all actually really challenged them a number of times. Now, the 5-0 loss obviously kind of stood out, but y'all go on to not only beat them, but be a really formidable foe. How, when y'all kind of stepped into playing UNC, was that a little bit of an added bite to the game, or was that something y'all were a little bit more up for? Tell me a bit about the UNC Notre Dame kind of time while you're there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was like the rivalry, and in the beginning it wasn't. And then there was no rivalry to UNC I think the last time they had lost the national championship before 95 was 85. But I think, and I don't even remember who that was to. I think it was George Mason. Anyways, they didn't really have like a rival if you think about it. And then I don't even know that they would have considered us a rival until probably like my junior year. Because I think we tied them in the regular season my sophomore year. We lost to them my freshman year. We tied them in the regular season my sophomore year. Then we lost 5-0 in the final. And then I think we lost to them in the regular season my junior year, but then beat them in the national championship game. And I think that was kind of like the birth of maybe like the rivalry. And then the next year we played them in the national championship game in 96. And then in 97, I think that was probably the first year that Notre Dame might have had like an equal or better team to Carolina. It was the year after I graduated, and I think they played during the season, and it was like a lightning storm, and they called the game, and then everybody wanted the rematch at the final, and it didn't end up being a rematch because UConn beat Notre Dame in the semis. But that was like the birth of the actual rivalry. And I think they would say, or they would have considered us a rival starting in my later years, where I don't know that they had a rival before that because they were just so much better than anyone. But yeah, that was kind of the birth of it, and that was like a hot rivalry for several years. No,
I can see that. What was there? I mean, a little bit of story time, but was there any moment in a game where I assume the games got chippy, but was there any like big dramatic moment you're like, well, that happened, I can't believe that happened, but that would only happen in like such a pressure cooker moment? Or where was it sportsmanship upheld at all times? I mean, what was like the on-field vibe in those games?
Yeah, no, it's interesting that you said that, because like the University of Portland was probably our other rival, but like I had played on the regional team with all those players, like when McIntosh and Justy Baumgart, like a lot of us had all played together, where Carolina was like a true rivalry. Like there was like no love lost between the teams. And I remember like Holly Manthei and Tiffany. Oh my gosh, why is Tiffany's last name escaping me? Oh my gosh, that's terrible. Okay, it's been a long time, but like Holly and Tiffany just had like such a rivalry on like outside mid. I mean, they would just be like go at each other like nonstop. And then I remember like Stacey Wilson and Monica Gerardo had a little bit of a rivalry too, and it definitely got like chippy. I think the year after I graduated, I think Monica, they played at Carolina, and I think Monica and Stacey went at it, and I think Monica got red carded and like thrown out of the game. And I remember like Chris calling me after I graduated, and he's like, it was not good, And so I think it was like, I mean, there was like no love lost between the teams, I would say, because I think there weren't a lot of like relationships that had existed maybe before. Where like with Portland and Santa Clara, there were a lot of relationships that existed before. And Cindy Dawes was the only one on our team that Carolina had really even recruited. So yeah, we just like, we just, both sides just really wanted to like beat each other a lot.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like those games that have that kind of undercurrent, man, they're so fun. Cause like you would go play games where there wasn't really a rivalry, and like, it's fine, you're going to compete, that's why you're there. But like when you've got like a date circled, or a team's coming up, or you remember last year's game, like it just gives it so much depth. So
and it was, I have to say that it was Tiffany Roberts because like
Okay.
she's amazing, and I can't believe I forgot her last name. But
Yep.
no, I do remember after we beat them because when we beat them, it was in the semifinals at Carolina. They were hosting the College Cup, and it was in the semis, and then we played Portland in the finals. And I remember like waking up the next day and like the Observer or whatever the paper was like the Carolina Dynasty Falls, and that was like their local paper. And so I mean, that was kind of like the birth, I think, of the rivalry.
So I've got I've got a couple of clips. So this one's really funny to me. The Dynasty Dumped, which is wonderful. The picture, I don't know what's going on there, but a lovely headline. And that's a really awesome moment. But then also I was curious. I don't know if you have any memories. This is a very specific moment, but in the final against Portland, for anyone that remembers or saw, I don't know if controversial is the right goal, but the goalkeeper in Erin Fahey, very talented goalkeeper in her own right, she's still setting up the wall as the play. There's been a foul given, the wall's being set up, and so she's on the post. She's trying to direct it, and apparently some disconnect as far as when the play was live, and pretty easy just lob into the open goal essentially, and that's the winning goal. Do you remember? I mean, I'm just thinking from a goalkeeper's perspective, you're all the way down the other side of the field, and kind of seeing that happen to another goalkeeper. I imagine it's somewhat of a gut punch just kind of see such a goal, but at the same time you're elated that your team is in the lead now. So do you any standout memories from that moment? Because it's such a weird situation that happens. I've never quite seen it at that level again.
Yeah, I think that situation, I think that we've talked about this a lot maybe since that game, because Erin Fahey, I didn't know her, but she was, and I don't even remember what their connection was. She was pretty good friends with Monica Gerardo, who was a teammate of mine who we've like all stayed in touch after college. So I remember like we've had a lot more dialogue about it after college than during, but I think what it was like there was a free kick and the ref never like blew the whistle to like stop play. It was like, it's a free kick, like the ball's live, put it and go, like he didn't blow the whistle to stop play to like move the wall or do anything. And so like the ball was live, but I just don't know that like Erin like had connected that, so she was just like setting up the wall. And then Cindy just saw it. I saw it too. I remember like yelling, like, just take a shot. And she did, and it went in, and it was very interesting because it was just like an anticlimactic maybe goal because Erin was so far over to the side, but it was like, it was weird, but it was very legit. It was like, there's a foul. Yeah. You put the ball down, you go. The ref never stopped play. And so, but I think Erin maybe thought he did or was confused or whatever. And Cindy just like saw it and took the opportunity and, but it was a little controversial. I remember after Monica being like, Erin and I still argue about this.
I can imagine. I mean, I can imagine if any goalkeeper was on the receiving end of that, I'm just furious would be I think the word that you probably just. Because
she was a great goalkeeper too. It's just like not how you.
Like a regular, poor error from a poor keeper. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
Well, I want to ask you one more thing, and just because I stumbled on it, and we can go into as much as we can here, but I just found this one random clip from talking about the 95 run. So this is in the spring after, but there's this moment here where I'm trying to think what I said. I'll just go ahead and read it. Goalkeeper, team captain, and second team All-American Renola, a junior, also spoke at the banquet, but with memories of struggles her team faced along the way. According to Renola, the team's low point came in a game against Renola. Frustrated, Renola pulled her coach aside to question the team's direction. I looked at the coach and said, "Who are you kidding? Honestly, do you really think we're going to win a national championship the way we have been playing? Do you really think we will if things don't change?" I guess I mean they're kind of crazy that they put that in a newspaper. But I guess I'm curious of like, y'all have a great season. I feel like typically when people look at championship seasons, it's just all positives, but it seems like some bumps in the road that y'all managed to somehow either use as fuel or manage to turn around. Do you remember that moment or what? Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, I do. No, I think it's funny, like in my sophomore year, I don't think we lost during the season. We tied Carolina and then we got killed in the final 5-0. And then my senior year, I don't think we lost during the season either. Maybe we lost one game to Santa Clara, and then we didn't win the national championship. My junior year was the bumpiest season. I think we lost 2 regular season games. We might have tied 2 as well. And yeah, I think we lost to Carolina. I don't even remember, but it was the bumpiest season. And we played at Villanova, and it was during our fall break, I think. And we won. I think we won like 2-0, but we just like didn't play well, and it was just very lackluster. And I just kind of got to the point where I'm like, this team is like so much better than like what we're actually outputting. And it sounded like that was like confrontational with me and Chris, which it wasn't that. I was kind of confrontational with the team. I kind of just like yelled at the team, but I didn't yell at them. I was just like, we've put so much into this, and like, this is like what the output is. Like, we're so much better than this. And I think that was, and then I think we had like a team meeting maybe that night or the next day without the coaches. And I think that was definitely the turning point. And that was kind of the low point of the season and got everybody back together. And I think Chris at the time, like, he probably like welcomed it because it wasn't him having to yell at us. Like, I did it for him. And I think he and I had a very good relationship. I think it was a very good connection of like someone that bought in. And I think Cindy had this relationship with him too, but somebody that really bought into like what the coach was doing and then could kind of get the team on board too. And so that and we would battle, don't get me wrong, or like if we would disagree, but it was like in his office or whatever, and then it was always just a united front on the team. And that was definitely like a turning point because we just knew we could do more than we were doing. So
well, and I feel like these moments, like, I had to ask because I found it, just was very, very curious, but I do feel like these moments are really tough to sum up in like a couple sentences when the reality is like, you have people who are competing that want to win, that, they also want to play with people who also want to win. Like, I don't want to be next to someone who's okay losing, like, I don't like, so you're having this, this momentum towards a certain direction. And if you're not all going that way, it can get very frustrating. So, but obviously it worked out for y'all. So
yes,
it was very good. Maybe there's no crossover at all, but I'm curious with the 95 World Cup, do you remember anything going at the time? Because when I talked to Heather about the 91 season, which they did very well, but like that's where there's a 91 World Cup at the same time. And so it was kind of interesting hearing how she was following it and how that kind of impacted the season. The 95 World Cup, did that play a factor in y'all's season at all? I wasn't sure on the dates when those lined up.
It didn't really, because I'm trying to, where was the 95 World Cup?
Norway?
Do you remember?
Was it Norway?
Norway? Okay. I actually think the 91 World Cup had like more of an impact on me because I was in high school still, and you kind of heard about it, and I think it was in China. You kind of heard about it and you heard this was going on, and the 95, and then I'm trying to remember if anyone on my team was in it. The Holly Mantha was definitely in the Olympics in 96 in Atlanta, but I don't, or was she was on the World Cup team too, I think. I'm really dusting off the cobwebs, but they didn't really have like an impact, I wouldn't say, on our team or season or anything other than Holly participating.
Yeah.
But I think I think she was at the Olympics. I don't know if she was in the World Cup, but.
Well, tell me a little bit about the transition with Lakeisha, because as I was reading, and just talking to you now, I can sense the humbleness. So reading the quotes of like from you and your team of y'all are obviously talking very highly of Lakeisha, who's about to step on. This is before she even got on the field. But there's also was kind of this sense of like, oh, like she's gonna really carry the torch forward at almost the point where you're almost thinking of like, hey, she's a little bit of a step above, at least how it's kind of read to me. I don't know, like she had so much buzz coming in, which as you didn't have that, but obviously you did very, very well for yourself. So I guess I'm curious of, it just seemed odd to me of like, yes, she did well in her career, did very, very talented goalkeeper, but almost to the point where this 3-time All-American keeper is kind of being acted like it's a step down. I don't know if that's quite lines up or if I'm off base on any of that, but I'm just curious on that
like I was a step down from her.
It was
which is true. No, I mean, Keisha, it's funny, she grew up in Sacramento. I grew up in just south of San Jose, and so she was always on the younger state team for Northern California. And then I remember my senior year, there was an ODP trip to Europe, and I was invited, but this is like insane to say at this time, but like, I feel like my dad didn't let me go because he was like, you can't miss a week of school, or it was just like a very different time. I was already committed to Notre Dame. I think it was like my prom too. And he was like, I don't want you to miss out on all this. So I didn't end up going. So Keisha ended up going. And so we knew each other from that. And then I remember when she came on a recruiting trip, Chris was like, we need to get her. Like, she's the next generation. We need to get her. So she stayed with me, and I like hosted her, and she's great. We're still friends to this day. And I was like convinced her to go there, and like we were all on board. And then I remember when it would have been my junior year. So we hadn't won the national championship yet. And I remember he came to practice one day and he's like, Keisha committed. And I was kind of like, oh God, like this is the end for me, you know? And then we won the national championship. And I genuinely think like if we hadn't won the national championship my junior year, I don't know if I would have started my senior year. Like she was very good. Like Keisha was very good. And like athletically, she just was so much better than I was. We used to like joke about it at practice, you know, like the night she was like a black belt in karate, and she was just so athletic. And I remember we just have like practices where we would just get beaten up, and I'd like come limping in the next day, and I'm like, oh my God, my back is killing me. And she was like spry as ever, you know, and she, so I don't know what it would have looked like my senior year, her freshman year, had we not won the national championships. I think at that point, you're not going to make a change, right? Like what got you there, you keep going. And then she had a year to like, adjust, which I didn't really need because there was no pressure back then, but she probably needed that. So it all worked out. And she had a great career, and she was like legitimately a lot better goalkeeper than I was. But I think it's like the difference of, you know, there's a lot of sports where people do like really well in college, and then like maybe after it is not like they reach their peak, you know, and that was me. Like I was the one you wanted like on your college team, but my career beyond that was not like, the potential was not what like Keisha had for sure. So
what was your going into your senior year? Were you pretty set on moving away from playing? I mean, was there any thought of playing after college? I understand that the landscape was very, very difficult, so I don't want to belittle that, but was going to Europe and taking a look an option for you?
Yeah, no, it was interesting because I was on the under-20 national team, and Clive was my coach there. Tony DeChico was the goalkeeper coach, and then he was the coach of the national team. And I remember my senior year, I talked to Tony, and he was like, you know, you've earned like a tryout with the national team. He's like, but it's not like, it's probably just going to be a camp, you know, which I knew, and it wasn't like surprising to me. And I had such a good career at Notre Dame and like felt fulfilled. I didn't need to like, and there was no infrastructure in the US. So like you said, I would have had to go overseas. I think Cindy ended up going to China. And there wasn't, even in Europe, like there wasn't a huge infrastructure built out. And I also had a job offer from Adidas before I graduated from college. And so it all just kind of felt like the time to like move on. And I really felt like I had peaked. Like I couldn't really push the ceiling much higher. And so sort of like, you know when to fold them. But and I walked away just like very content.
No, it does feel like kind of a John Elway sort of like, hey, like I've done what I wanted to do, you know, like I like no regrets sort of thing. You did get into coaching for a little bit. You were at UT for a little bit. I think that's where you actually you were there while you won the 25th anniversary award, which I'm trying to imagine like coaching people and an award comes out like, hey, this is one of the best ever. Like from a coach's perspective, that's probably got to give you like a little bit of like a feather in your cap sort of thing. Like, oh yeah, like I guess I do know what I'm talking about. Tell me a little bit about your time coaching. You didn't spend much time with it from what I could gather.
Yeah, so Chris had left Notre Dame 2 years after I graduated, and he took the head coaching job at Texas, and he asked if I would go be his assistant, and I did, and I was there 5 years. I went to grad school at the same time, so it was like a grind for a few of those years. I enjoyed coaching. I think for me, I started really young. I was 23. And I think when you are like that young on the staff, I was the only female on staff. I didn't have like a healthy disconnect from the players. I think I tried to like help everyone, and I tried to like save everyone. And if you have a college team with 25, 20-year-old women, like people are going to bring in problems and baggage. And like, I tried to like help, and I think I just got sucked into a lot of, it was just emotional, and it was just like it was a great 5 years, but I just was like, I don't know if I can do this the rest of my life. Where if I went back and coached a college team now, I would have like completely like the boundaries of like this, and there's resources here, and there's resources, and you can't be the person that people come to all the time when something like happens in their life. And I was kind of that person, and it just was a lot. But I really enjoyed my time coaching. I really liked it. I think for me, it just came down to, I just couldn't see myself for the next like 25 years, like recruiting every single holiday. And like, it's just so emotional. It's so hard to disconnect because there's just people involved all the time. And for me, it was like, it's probably time to like see what the next chapter is.
Yeah. Interesting.
But I enjoyed it. It was great.
Yeah. Well, when you look at the game now, I mean, how much of that is when you see it now, is there still a pretty big connect of like, that looks familiar, that's what it kind of felt like? Or when you see the game now, is like, man, that is totally different. And you mentioned the recruiting process being so different. I'm curious if the on-field product, how familiar or similar that looks and feels to you.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. At the end of the day, it's soccer, right? And so like it's the same game. But I will say, like, I look at the players and like, it just seems like it's so much more physical, and people are like so much bigger and like stronger and athletic. And I do sometimes think about that. I'm like, if I played today, like, would I be any good? And I do think still like the what was good about my game would have still held up in the college game today. I was like, I had good positioning. I could read the game. It wouldn't have held up at a higher level, because I just athletically wasn't good enough. But so it's similar, but it does seem a little bit more athletic. But then I see goalkeepers too, where I'm like, they're super athletic, but their technique is so bad. Like if you're not set when someone shoots the ball, it really doesn't matter how athletic you are. You're not going to be in the right position to save it. So a lot has changed, but a lot has stayed the same too. The fundamentals of the game have stayed the same. I just think the game's become bigger, stronger, faster, more physical on the women's side in college specifically. Yeah.
No, I can see that. I always really enjoy seeing clips from like early 20th century, from like the 1920s or whatever, where it's just chaos on the field, and like formations are, who knows, like it's almost like rugby in some sense. But the goalkeepers are still like very familiar, where they're largely just trying to figure it out. They're trying to get the ball out of the net. They're trying to think of all, where they should be, how they should handle this. Like this definitely gets clunky at times for sure, just kind of watching it. And the few clips that there are, even just out there, the plays are so odd, just because everyone's just kind of like just figuring out on their own, from forwards to goalkeepers. But even then, there's still a strong thread of like, okay, that like I can sense the anxiety. I can sense like why they position themselves there. So I could see that. Well, let's do this, Janet. And I've really enjoyed kind of walking through, but I think probably the best way to cap this off, I've got 3 questions that'll kind of conclude this. 2 of them are very, very similar, but we'll start with that. What are standout memories for you from your time at Notre Dame? Give me one on the field that like you'll never forget that moment. It's on the field. And then give me one that's off the field that's still in like the soccer world, that's in, whether that's a conversation or something that happened away from the field, that with your team or coach or whatever. But give me one on-field and one off-field memory that you'll never forget. And you can do more than one if you're having trouble.
I mean, the one on field is just like too obvious, right? It's like winning the national championship. And like maybe the off field, I think there might be a couple, but I think the year before we were playing at Portland in the College Cup, and we lost to Carolina in the final 5-0. And in the bus after, I just remember saying like, I still like, and feeling, and the team felt this way, like I still would rather be like on this bus, like having lost 5-0 than anywhere else. And like, I think that was like the pivotal point, you know, where we were like, we just got humiliated, but we still like believe in this team and want to be on the bus. And I remember Dick Rosenthal was our athletic director at the time. He was on the bus with us, like sitting in the back of the bus. He was the most personable AD ever. Yeah, I think he's the one that originally did the NBC contract at Notre Dame. And like, he was like hanging out with us, you know, it was just so different then. And I that was probably like we're still in the right spot. I'm still in the right place. And like, there's more to be done here was probably the most memorable, which then led to like the most memorable on the field, which was ultimately winning the next year.
No, that's very cool. That's very cool. I like that a lot. I feel like a lot of people can relate with that moment of like, man, yeah, we just got wiped on the field, but like, I don't want to be on a different team. Like, this is my team. Like, you know, like, let's go play again. You know, like we want to, we want to stay here. So very cool. All right. Well, last question to kind of cap this off, and this is intentionally ambiguous, so take it in any direction you like. But what does goalkeeping mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I think goalkeeping was like the vehicle through which like I became who I am, not became who I am, through which I was comfortable maybe with who I am, in the sense that like it gave me a lot of confidence. It gave me the confidence to speak up, you know, like the Villanova game, like use my voice, like which have served me well, and all of that has like served me well in life. And you know, I ended up getting a job at Adidas. That was through soccer, right? And that was through the connection. It was through goalkeeping. And then I coached at Texas, and now I'm at Nike. And like, it's all been connected. Like, my life would have been so different had I not gone to Notre Dame. So I just think goalkeeping, which in a broader sense, sport, is sort of gave me the foundation and ability to figure out who I was and use my voice. And it's interesting too, like in a work environment, like I'm always just a big believer. I'm like, the people around you will make you better, and you'll make those people better. And even as like a manager of people, I'm like, you're not a good manager unless you make the people below you and around you better. Like, that's ultimately your job. And that's like the team that I was on. It's an outdated philosophy at times in a work environment, you know, when like people are managing up and doing all the things. But I think without goalkeeping specifically, because I wouldn't have made it that far as a field player, it just gave me the avenue to kind of be who I was and really set me up for success in like life. So
the position is very subtly collaborative. I mean, you're wearing a different kit, you know, you have different rules, so it can look like you're kind of on an island, which is definitely sometimes, but your success is so dictated by what your defender is doing, or, you know, the whole back line, or your midfield. Like, you just have so much reliability that you need. That carryover is not a surprise. I can see that. Well, Jen, thank you so much. I really enjoyed kind of walking down this track. I think this era in general is just very fascinating, because it's so it's almost like these little bubbles of whatever happened. It was, you know, things, you know, sometimes got out in a newspaper of like a, you know, a big headline of someone winning a national championship, but a lot of these moments are really, you know, the bus moment's a great example. Like, you have these very, very small pockets, and there's a lot going in it. And so I always love hearing about the time. So thank you for walking down this memory lane with me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. Yeah, thank you.